The SBA 504 loan is the loan that you would be using if you're going to own or operate out of 51% or more of the business. So it would work for salons and private practice doctors and things like that. Wouldn't work for someone who owned a apartment building or someone who had an office building, because they can't occupy themselves 51% of the building. But if you were a small practice doctor, you probably occupy the whole building. Or if you're a hair salon, you had your own spot, you would be occupying a whole, but they let you rent out 49% of it. So that's what you use an SBA 504 loan for. There is an SBA 7A loan. That loan is what you're going to use if you are going to be refinancing some old business debt, if you're going to be buying equipment, if you're going to be paying employees. Pretty much you can use the 7A loan for anything except for paying the owners and officers, because obviously the owners and officers borrowed the money, and so they have to pay it back, so it doesn't make any sense for them to pay themselves out of that. And then you have SBA Express loans. So SBA Express loans are meant for a specific target that the government is trying to stimulate. And so for instance, Patriot Express is meant for veterans. Women's Advantage, of course, meant for women-owned businesses. Then you have Community Advantage that are meant to stimulate specific communities. So those are the types of SBA loans that you can get. And the government will guarantee 100% on the 504 loans, 90% on the SBA 7A loans, and 50% on the SBA Express loans, meaning that, let's say, for instance, you were buying a building that you were going to operate out of 51% or better, and they gave you they loaned you $100,000, and you weren't able to pay. On the 504 loan, the SBA will pay the bank back $100,000, and then of course the government's going to collect from you. So you still got to pay it. It's just, the bank doesn't have to risk their money. On the SBA 7A loan, on that same $100,000 loan, if you defaulted, the SBA pays the bank $90,000, and then the government collects their $90,000 from you. And the bank is safe and sound because they have most of their money back. So an SBA is a guaranteeing agency. It's like insurance for the bank, and so it allows them to do loans that they normally would not do. And then they issue them to you. There are some prohibited industries such as real estate investing, property management. Anything that has to do with real estate is probably going to be on the prohibited or high risk list. Also, there are the other things such as if you have over 50% of your revenue is coming from alcohol sales, then it's probably going to be on a prohibited list. So you basically, if it's in a sin industry and most of your revenues come from the it's not a sin, but they call it sin industry, then you're probably not going to be able to get this type of funding for that type of business. So if you are trying, let's say for instance, the SBA doesn't have a minimum credit score requirement. However, the banks do, because they can't discriminate. So they can't give someone over here a loan and then, with a 575 credit score, and then this person over here that walks in a bank that has the same, that looks the same, that looks the same on paper, but they don't get approved. That could be seen as discrimination. So they can't do it. So they have to kind of put barriers, and they have to know that if everybody with this same criteria walked into the bank today, that they would be able to get approved, and they wouldn't get in trouble for discrimination. So if you are having over a 720 credit score, generally speaking, you're going to be able to fit the credit criteria. On the SBA side, they're more lenient. They can go down to 680 in most areas. But if you're lower than 680, you're generally not going to be able to get approved for an SBA loan at the bank. And that's when the microloan program comes into effect. So a microloan is actual SBA dollars. Just like you don't go to the bank to get an SBA loan, you don't go to the SBA to get a microloan. The SBA lends directly to a nonprofit that is a microloan lender, and then the microloan lender relends it to you at like 8%. So they might lend it to them at the nonprofit for 1%, and then the nonprofit is going to relend it to suitable businesses in their area at like 8 to 16%. So that is why when you are applying for a microloan, you actually have to have 2 bank decline letters, because they want to make sure that you're not able to take the bank's money and use the bank's money, and now you actually have to use, SBA funding. So they want to make sure that you go through that process. But if you are applying for less than $20,000, then you'd only need proof that you would be declined if you went to the bank. And if you are under 680 credit score, you're most likely going to get a decline at the bank. So then what you need to do in order to get a microloan is you have a business plan. They want to know that if they give you the money, if they loan you the money, you'll know how to spend it in order to make the money back and pay them. And then be profitable and create sustainable jobs. That's what they care about. And that's pretty much it. As long as you have a 575 credit score, you're not 60 days past due on any IRS debt, child support, or student loans. If you've had any bankruptcies, they need to be discharged at least 1 year. No foreclosures within the last 24 months. Been at your job for 6 months or in business for 6 months. If you are a startup, they want you to have been at your job for the 6 months. If you're a startup, you can't have over $500 charged off or past due on your credit report. If you're an existing business, which they define as 6 months of business revenues going into a business bank account, then you can't have over $3,000 charged off or past due on your credit report. And not more than 3 mortgages in your personal name, and no 30-day lates on your mortgage within the last year. So if you're going through QT, we actually know that if you fit that minimum criteria, we can guarantee that you will receive an approval. We just can't guarantee a dollar amount, but we know that if you fit that minimum criteria, we know that they're going to issue some sort of business financing. So we write the business plan, we go ahead and submit that to the microloan lender, and then we assist you in filling out all the applications and everything, and then we can guarantee approval as long as you meet that minimum credit requirement. Now, since this is hey, should we be nonprofit or for-profit, I'm going to go into teaching you what nonprofits do and how nonprofits get funded. So a nonprofit, any business can be a nonprofit. The difference between a for-profit and a nonprofit is your intent. So if you intend to help the community, let's say for instance you were a hairdresser, you can have a for-profit hair salon, or you can have a nonprofit hair salon that helps homeless people, and then you get paid by grant makers to do the services. So a lot of times people are confused because they don't believe, or they don't know that you actually still charge for services in a nonprofit. It's just that most likely the person receiving the services didn't pay for it. But it's still the same cost as if you had been in a for-profit. It's just that somebody else is paying for a target. So I'm going to go to GuideStar, and I like to show, what's going on. You're in Michigan? Okay. I like to just kind of go over, I'm just going to look at youth because a lot of times people like to help youth. So I'm going to go over youth in Michigan. look at some nonprofits in Michigan that help youth. And I like to look at Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit. I like them because they're really local. And let's see. So this is the Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit. And nonprofit returns are public because the public gives the money, donations, and grants. So you can inspect any nonprofit's financials. So this one is formed to empower young people through professional performing arts training. As you can see, they received over $1 million in grants. They're right in Detroit. And then they did charge for services too, about $267,000 worth of services that they charged for. And what they do is they help. I like to show people this because it's kind of they empower. This is their program. They provide intensive performing arts training to approximately 165 Detroit area youth between the ages of 11 and 18. And they help with performance-based training to increase self-esteem, discipline, and development of skills needed to successfully face rigorous higher education coursework in a globally competitive workforce. So basically they have like this camp and they teach the people, the babies how to act and set up a stage and all of that, anything that has to do with getting a job in that field. And then of course they train them, and then they get the grants. In this case you can see that the founder pays himself around $80,000 a year. I'm going to show you another Michigan nonprofit that it deals with youth, and well actually they deal with anything arts. Have you ever heard of Interlochen? Okay, so they're in Interlochen, Michigan, and you can go there. You can go sign up for music, audio production, creative writing, whatever you want to do. I'm going to go into the music one, and they do a bunch of camps throughout the year. So they just had one that was June 28th this year. That's a 6-week, they do different vocal and all this kind of stuff. This one is a strings one. So it's a 6-week program for grades 6 through 9. And if you can afford it, you pay $9,300 for the 6 weeks. But if you can't afford it, then you're going to turn in your W-2s, and then you can get a scholarship to go there. So they're a nonprofit as well. So a lot of times people don't know nonprofits can actually charge. Nonprofits do charge for their services, and if it's a program that people want to go to, people will actually pay. That can afford to go, they'll pay for their child to go, or if they want to go, if they're an adult, they will pay for it. But it's not fair that those that are economically disadvantaged, can't go, and then only, rich people's kids will be able to go to that camp. So then they are allowed to get a grant and pay for the $9,000 for that child. So as you can see, they got over $15 million in grants, but $43 million people pay to them because it's a good school, it's a good camp. It's really great, and if you go there, they have the best teachers in the world to teach the music. So $43 million people paid. Now here's what this is: they get these grants, and then $15 million worth of students can go that can't afford. So it's not coming out of their pocket; it comes out of somebody else's pocket. It's still the $9,000, the $9,300. However, they going to take this money from here and then apply it to that child's fees, and that way that person that's economically disadvantaged still gets to go, and they still pay their teachers and everything, because you know they don't have just free money to pay their teachers. So then I like to show the salaries here because they're larger. You know, a nonprofit, you know, founders can make a lot of money as long as they're doing what they said in the community. As you can see here, he makes $521,000 a year, and then bonus of $64,000, and then his top paid employees are between $100,000 a year and $322,000 a year. So, so how do nonprofits get funded? Well, there are many ways that nonprofits can get funded. You can charge for services, as I showed you with interlocking. That you charge for services. You can get grants. You can get sponsorships. And there are different types of grants. You can get government grants. You can get county, state grants. We actually focus on what's called private foundation grants. So a private foundation receives more than 1/3 of its income from one source. So Ford will have Ford Foundation. Google will have Google Foundation. Bill and Melinda Gates will have Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So they've received most of their money from one source. A public charity, if you were going to open up a nonprofit, or like Interlocking is a public charity, they receive more than 1/3 of their income from multiple different sources. The community gives the money and they want that to run. So private foundations we focus on because the IRS has a minimum payout requirement for them. So if you go to the IRS website, they have what's called a tax on foundation failure to distribute income. So for private foundations, they must spend 5% of their assets annually, and failure to make the timely distributions of the income at the required level will give rise to excise taxes, and if the failure is willful or flagrant, additional penalty taxes, including a possible termination tax. So I'm going to show you some grant makers. A lot of times people are like, hey, why do these companies like Ford have why do they even have a private foundation? Well, the government gives for-profit companies a tax discount if they give a percentage of their revenues to a good cause. And so what would happen is, let's say for instance, Ford Motor Company, it has billions of dollars of revenue every year. They want a tax break on their for-profit taxes. So what they do is the government says, if you give 5% of your revenues to a good cause, we'll give you a 20% discount on your for-profit taxes. So instead of Ford going out and trying to find a whole bunch of people to add up to 5%, what they do is they take that one lump sum out, and then they, out of their for-profit taxes, then they put it into their private foundation, and then they immediately take the tax deduction on the for-profit side, and now the money's in the Ford Foundation has to get spent, because remember, the IRS says, hey, if it's in your private foundation, you got to spend 5% of your assets annually. So as you can see, Ford Foundation has $12 billion in assets as of 2013. So as the end of 2013, they gave away, they had to give out $560 million. And as you can see, $560 million is pretty close to 5% of $12 billion. So, because, you know, $1 billion would actually be 10%. So they just like, they're giving the minimum amount that they have to. So they can say what they're not going to give money for. So if you're not in one of these areas, they're not going to give money to that. They're not going to do it for religious activities or anything. Some grant makers will do building and maintenance. This one doesn't. But here's some things that they do fund for. So they fund for programs that are going to help with democratic and accountable government. They're going to fund programs that will help with economic fairness, helping low-income people get a job, or next generation workforce development, like that Mosaic Youth Theater. They help with workforce for next generation, which is going to be youth workforce development. And they just basically want to help anybody that's trying to get this low income, that, you know, you're going to help them get a better job. They do they do films and stuff. If you're going to do a film and it's going to help with social justice worldwide, they will fund art spaces. They're really big on that. They're big on gender, sexuality, and reproductive justice, human rights, you know, just a lot of stuff that they want to help with. Here's some other subjects that they will fund for. So we have, you know, housing development, human services, leadership development. So if you have a program that's helping with one of these interests, you might be able to get a grant from them as well. Here's their target. They want to help adolescents. So this specific grant maker will not work if you're helping, you know, youth or children 0 to 5, because they want to help adolescents. They want to help ethnic and racial groups, females, low income and poor people, some other targets. And these are how they support. So they give, you know, general support, you know, different things that they will give for. You put your grant proposal together. Here's the place where you submit your grant. This particular grant maker doesn't have any deadlines, but most do. And then they tell you 3 months from the time you submit the proposal if it's going to be something that they're going to fund or not. I'm going to show you JP Morgan Chase as well. They do affordable housing. So if your program is going to be helping people, designed to help reduce the cost of housing, improve the quality and safety of homes, and prepare families for the cost and responsibility of home ownership, then you could possibly get a grant there. So this is like basically helping them learn how to budget right here. Financial capability, budgeting, helping them improve their credit so that they can possibly buy a house and be a homeowner. And then they also want to help with economic growth and workforce development as well, which is, you know, again, helping youth and adults acquire knowledge, skills, and experience to obtain jobs, and help employers gain access to skilled employees. So here's some more of their interest: home ownership, home financing, housing development, job creation. That's things that they will fund for. They only want to help low income and poor people. You have to be in one of their states of giving. And then you put your grant proposal together. This one doesn't have any deadlines. There are over 5 million private foundations in the United States. So what you do is you put your programs together, and then you go ahead and you put your grant proposal together, and then you submit to the grant maker that is helping your target, who you want to help, but you also want to be in line with who they want to help because they have the money. And that's pretty much it. That's how a nonprofit works, and then that's how you get funding. One type of way that you get funding in a nonprofit. Has this helped you determine, or have you learned anything today? Awesome. So are you still thinking about doing the real estate investing? What are you thinking about doing? Okay. Okay, that still would be on the for-profit side. So you definitely would want to open up either an LLC or a corporation, a for-profit corporation. For lending, though, that industry is not going to be one that the lenders will lend to. So if you are trying to get some type of funding from a traditional lender or from a microloan lender, you would have to visit other industries that are are palatable for the lender. Here's some industries that they want, that what they've serviced and have done some of our clients. They've done home health care companies, janitorial services, barbershops, landscaping companies, anything business to business or business consumer. And what you want to look at is you want to look at those things that are can create daily revenues. So if you have to have something that you got to get a property and hopefully somebody buys it, you can get a big large payout. That's going to be something that generally a lender will not finance. But if you have something where everybody's coming in daily and they're buying something or they're doing something, you're providing services every day, then that's going to be something that lenders are going to be more palatable towards. Awesome. So you learned some things? Awesome. How did you find out about us? Facebook. Okay. Was it for the Motor City Match? Okay. Oh well, let me go while we're here, because I didn't know that. So I'm going to actually go to Motor City Match here. Now, Motor City Match, you're not going to be able to get a grant to do any type of investing. But if you are going to be looking for a spot and you want to get into that spot and open up your business that is going to cause daily revenues, then they'll match you with a space. And so right now, applications are open until September 30th. No, I'm sorry. September 1st to October 1st. So you can apply for a grant. They give you grants for different things. If you don't have a business plan, they'll actually give you a grant to pay for a business plan. So if you went to the Motor City Match website and you went to service providers and then business consulting, you can see that QT Business Solutions is actually an approved technical assistance provider for Motor City Match. So if you were trying to get us to write the business plan and you didn't have the funds to pay us directly, you could apply for a grant to get a business plan from us. You can also, if you already have a business plan and you want a space for your your business, you can go here and you would apply for the grant, and then they're going to match you with a space. And if you already have a space and you already have a business plan, you already have a space, they will match you with the technical assistant provider to do the drawings to get it built out the way that you want it to be built out. And then this last is a cash grant. You just have to already have your business plan. You have to have your space already secured. You have to have your build-out designs already made. And once you do that, then you apply here, and they'll match what you've already invested in your business with cash. So that's why it's called Motor City Match. They match you with a technical assistant provider like QT Business Solutions. They match you with a space, and they'll match your cash. Now, on the cash side too, if you get approved for a loan, they'll match that as well. You don't have to actually have cash yourself. And that's it. Yeah, so the Motor City Match will not work for your industry that you're trying to go in, because they want you to go into a building that's already owned by someone, and they want you to go put your business in there, and then they want you to be successful so that you can start paying rent to the owner of the building. So Motor City Match will work. It just won't work for your type of industry. You have to look for something that's going to create daily revenues. You know what I mean? All right. So she has disabled kids. She probably is a nonprofit. Is she a nonprofit? Okay. Okay. And now, that if she's a nonprofit, Motor City Match only gives to for-profits, but she might be able to get some grants for her house that is for disabled youth. She might be able to get grants. It's just not going to be for Motor City Match because they want to match you with a facility. You see what I mean? So you just have to kind of figure out where you're going, and then just figure out what you want to do and does it align with the grant maker or the lender. You have to always align your ideas with what whoever has the money, because of course they have it. So you got to go like, okay, if they're not doing it for that, then you just figure out what you're going to do that aligns with what they're doing. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming out. If you have any questions or concerns, or if you want to, if you figure out what you want to do and you want to apply for, the business plan or some sort of grant from Motor City Match, just give us a call back and we'll help you do that. All right. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Bye-bye.